Welcome back then folks to the second of 3 builds this week in special projects for Forza Horizon 5. Much like the Jag, this is a build which I've had on the cards for a while, and again, like the Jag, it's a vehicle which, in the case of this one, more so even than an all-wheel drive XKR, I could totally understand why they didn't do it, but I do think it's kind of a shame that we never had the chance, because this is of course an AMG build, and a fictional X63 AMG for the X Class. More commonly seen as a traffic car in Forza Horizon. I don't see many players at all using the vehicle, which is kind of funny because at least here in the UK, I don't think it was that successful of a truck. Funnily enough, I actually saw one today which looked a very similar spec to this, and it looked fantastic, which is a shame. And it's ironic for a brand like Mercedes that's known for stuff like the overpriced G-Wagons in AMG form, etc., that these didn't really do that well. Because within the truck sphere, it could have been a bit of a status symbol, but I guess with trucks, at least here in the UK, most are used as workhorses, and you don't really look for that kind of prestige side of it. And most people who would probably just buy a Ram or, import an F-150 or something instead. In the case of this one, of course, you can do the motor swap, thankfully, to make it that much more authentic. And if you do just want to grab what I've done straight onto the car, as always, I'll have put the codes down in the bottom. You don't entirely need to do the paint version. It's basically just a black Mercedes. So if you want to support me by downloading that, then go for it. But of course, the build is the main thing. And as with the Jaguar, if at all possible, I do like to make these lined up in terms of a class as well. It doesn't always happen. Some of the builds like the Mugen Integra and a couple others to come in future don't quite line up to be like, A800 or C600. But for this one, it does line up with C600. So potentially you might be able to use this for seasonals or online stuff if you wanted to. And again, like with the Jag, I wanted it to look realistic, to feel realistic, obviously to sound realistic. The motor swap takes care of that. But to make it feel like it could have been, like an alternate reality once again. Now, in terms of the motor swap, of course, you want that 6.2 V8, 510 horses, already perfect territory for a car like this. As far as the all-wheel drive, of course, you want to keep that. For the aspiration, we've left it natural on this one. And as far as the wide body, you don't have to go for it, but, as you can see, it makes a pretty huge difference to how aggressive it looks. The wide arches alone give it much more of an AMG kind of look. The bonnet bra and that kind of stuff, not so much, but hey, it's not too far off. As far as the aero, of course, you do have a couple of options. I've opted to go from the standard back end just to that kind of more chunky look. You can also get a version of it which has the extra ducktail as well. To me, that looked a little bit much on this car, a bit too Transformers-ish for me, so I've gone for that one. But of course, if you do follow this yourself rather than downloading it, you could change that if you wanted to. And as far as the side stuff, of course, that removes the side runners, which to me, I think it looks worse, personally, without them. You've got to have that kind of rugged appearance like a G63 or a G65. In terms of tyres, I've left that stock, again, for C600. I would strongly recommend not necessarily taking this up into a higher class, because with 510 horses in C class, that could be quite useful. But if you take it higher, you're quickly going to feel, the weight and the size of the vehicle working against you. And in B class, A class and above, it's just not going to be as competitive of a car. In terms of the tyres, we've upgraded the fronts to 305s, upgraded the rear to 375, or actually I'm saying 305, I'll just double check. 305s on the front, and then 375s on the rear. As far as the rims, again, I wanted them to be bigger but not crazy, so we're going for 21 inch. To me, that looks pretty much perfect. Maybe slightly chunkier tyres, but again, you're talking like a higher class at that level. As far as the rims, I wanted them to have that AMG kind of styling, so I've gone for work T5Rs, so that you can find those, and thankfully those do have quite an AMG kind of vibe anyway, but you could go for whatever rims you want. As far as the width, I actually haven't changed that, because as you can see, it does bump you up into B class, and then on the rear, I haven't bothered anyway. You can if you want to, but I haven't. And as far as the tyres, we've gone chunkier, because without it, it looks pretty ridiculous if you just leave them small. As far as the engine, we've done nothing to the power, because again, 510 is about what you want anyway from that motor. As far as the flywheel, I have upgraded that to the sports one. For the brakes, etc., that is the one exception I've made in terms of realism, because obviously racing brakes are definitely overkill, but I'm imagining it as being like almost like a carbon ceramic optional upgrade, if you will, just to make it feel a little bit more justified. So if you find that too much, you could just go for the sports brakes. As far as the suspension, of course, we've gone for off-road, gives it that chunkier appearance and also better roll holding it anyway. As far as the anti-roll, we've gone for sport on the front and the back. For the chassis reinforcement, unsurprisingly, we haven't done anything there, and likewise for the weight. Again, you could drop the weight if you want to, but you're talking like up into B class at that point. And if you look at the specs, 510 horses, 2.2 tons, that feels about right. I mean, the weight might be a little bit too generous. It would probably be a bit heavier than that, but it's believable enough, I think, for this car. As far as the clutch, again, sport. Likewise with the driveline. As far as the diff, we've gone for the racing one. And as far as the transmission, I've opted for, again, something which felt kind of realistic, so a 10-speed. That's very much what I could imagine a car like this having. Again, you've got that mix of efficiency and performance. So that's it for the build. Like I said, you could just use the share code at the start of the video and get all of what I've just done exactly as this car is straight onto your vehicle. But now if we jump into the custom section, I've improved, if I recall correctly, the PSI, or bumped it up a bit to 35. As far as the gearing, all the way up to 6 on the final drive, and then the individual gears as necessary. I think I may have changed some of those, so if you double check that against yours, then you can see. For the alignment, a little bit of camber, not exactly a camber heavy build at this one anyway, so 0.3, no toe, 5 degrees of caster. For anti-roll, that is non-adjustable, of course, with the sports one. As far as the springs, just under 70 and just over 46. You could stiffen it up a bit more, but again, I wanted it to feel that kind of slightly wallowy, but a mix of comfort and almost muscle, like a muscle pickup vibe, because what we're replicating is not a tuned AMG pickup, we're replicating what a standard AMG pickup would feel like in the game, if that makes sense. And that's the fine line to work with. As far as the ride height, we've gone for the maximum. As far as the dampers, those are basically standard for that one. Again, if you do want to stiffen it up, you could go for the bump and improve that, but I don't think, to be honest, you really need to on this car. Aero, of course, is non-adjusted. For the braking, I have made it a little bit more front-biased, to 55%, and for the diff 100% for manoeuvrability on all of those, and a 60% rear bias. So with all of that out of the way, to take a quick look at the specs, I would say for the most part that feels kind of believable. You know, a sub 5 second 0 to 60 is definitely possible from a car like that. 161 miles an hour, I mean, technically that probably would be quite realistic actually, because Merc does tend to speed limit them to 155, so it's hard to know how quick they actually are. But I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, if it actually probably could do over 160. So it might be one of the more realistic builds from the point of view of the spec. So all that remains is, of course, to jump out on the road and show you what this thing can do in practice. Now, much like with the Jaguar, although definitely not with the same kind of backstory as the Jag, this is a car which I would not say you should go into expecting it to revolutionise the game for you. I don't think you'd necessarily be expecting that, but in addition to it feeling grounded, looking accurate, feeling accurate to what a real X63 could have been like, which personally I'm very happy with. I think it looks, sounds and feels exactly as it should, to a believable degree, but not too good, if that makes sense. But I also wanted it to be, as I said earlier on, useful. 500 plus horsepower in C Class with the all-wheel drive advantage and pretty good handling of brakes, certainly with racing brakes and suspension. That's a pretty solid all-round mix. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to destroy everything in its path in general, but for pickup and 4x4 events, you could definitely get some use out of this car if you needed to. So if you do decide to use it just for fun, you absolutely will enjoy it. Maybe, like I would assume many players have, you've got at least one of these lying around that you're doing nothing with. I hope you enjoy it. For me, it makes it a far more interesting car and far more fun as well. And although it is a shame that we never got one, this is the same brand who made an AMG version of the R Class, after all, as rare as that one is, so it's kind of a shame. Kind of makes sense that they didn't know, given that the sales weren't that great. That's it for my fictional X63 AMG. I hope you enjoy it, whether you download it yourself or copy the video. Check out the Jag, of course, stick around for more to come, and you can find all of my Horizon builds, speed builds, replica builds, circuit builds within the playlist in the description and here on screen as well. But for now, thanks for watching.